They had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. They were tall creatures standing 8 feet high with hard shells covering their bodies like armor. Their eyes were black and cold. They had 6 arms, each ending in sharp claws that could cut through metal. Every species they met had 2 choices: bow down or die. Most chose to bow. The rest were destroyed. In all their long history, they had never lost a war. They did not know what defeat felt like. They did not understand fear. To them, other species were like insects, small, weak, and easily crushed. So when their scout ships found a new species living on 17 small worlds, they expected nothing different. These creatures called themselves humans. They had soft skin, no claws, no armor. They were small and fragile. They laughed when they saw them. "Another weak species," the scout commander reported. "They will fall within days." The Empire sent a small fleet to the human colony called Nu. It was a young world, only 50 years old, with green forests and blue oceans. 3 million humans lived there in peace. They built homes, raised families, and dreamed of the future. Governor Park was sitting in her office when the message came. She was a woman of 50 years, with gray hair and tired eyes. She had spent her life building this colony, watching it grow from a few thousand settlers to a thriving world. Her assistant ran into the room, his face white with fear. "Governor, you need to see this." Looked at the screen. Massive ships filled the sky above her world. They were bigger than anything humans had ever built. Each one was covered in spikes and weapons. They looked like monsters from old nightmares. Then a voice came through. It was cold and harsh, like metal scraping against stone. "Creatures of this world, we are the Empire. You will surrender now. You will give us your planet, your resources, and yourselves. You have 48 hours. If you do not surrender, we will kill every living thing on your world. This is not a request. This is your only warning." The message ended. Silence filled the room. His hands were shaking, but not from fear. She was angry. This was her home. These were her people. And these monsters expected her to just give up. She opened a channel to Earth. It took several minutes for the signal to reach Admiral, commander of the United Earth Defense Fleet. His face appeared on her screen, a man in his 60s with a scar across his left cheek and eyes that had seen many battles. "Admiral, we have a situation," said. Her voice was steady now. "Alien ships, they call themselves they want us to surrender." Listened carefully. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Governor Park, I need you to do something for me," he said finally. "I need you to stall them. Talk to them, delay them, do whatever you have to do. I am bringing the 3rd Fleet, but it will take 3 days to reach you." 3 days, repeated. "They gave us 48 hours. "Then make them wait longer. You are clever, Governor. I have faith in you." The screen went dark. Sat alone in her office thinking. 3 days. She had to keep her people alive for 3 days. She called her military commander, a young woman named Lee. Was only 32, but she had trained soldiers her whole adult life. She was small but fierce, with short black hair and a voice that could make grown men stand straight. "Sergeant Lee, I need you to prepare our defenses," said. "We may have to fight." Did not hesitate. "Yes, Governor, I will make them regret coming here." Across the colony, people watched the alien ships in the sky. Parents held their children close. Old people prayed. Young people felt something strange in their hearts, not just fear, but something else, something hot and sharp. In a small hangar near the spaceport, a young pilot named Minu sat in his fighter. He was 25 years old, with messy hair and a quick smile. But he was not smiling now. He stared at the ships through his cockpit window. His radio crackled. "All pilots stay on standby, do not engage. Repeat, do not engage." Minu gripped his controls. His whole body wanted to fly up there and fight. He knew it was foolish. His little fighter was nothing compared to those massive warships, but he could not help it. "Come on," he whispered to the aliens above. "Come down here, I dare you." In the flagship, Commander watched the human colony below. He had conquered over 100 worlds in his long life. This would be his easiest victory yet. "They are not responding to our message," his officer reported. "Should we attack now?" "No," said. "Let them have their 48 hours. Let them feel fear. Let them understand that they have no hope. Then when we destroy them, it will be even." He made a sound that might have been laughter. "Look at them, soft little creatures. No claws, no armor. What can they possibly do against us?" He could not have been more wrong. Down on the planet, Park stood before her people. She had called every citizen to the main square. 3 million faces looked up at her, waiting for her words. "I will not lie to you," she said, her voice carried by speakers across the entire colony. "We face a terrible enemy. They are stronger than us. They have bigger ships, better weapons. They have conquered hundreds of worlds." She paused. The crowd was silent. "But they do not know us," she continued. "They do not know what humans can do when we fight for our homes. They do not know that we never give up. They do not know that we would rather die standing than live on our knees." Someone in the crowd shouted, "We will fight." Others joined in. Soon, 3 million voices were shouting together. The sound rose up into the sky, toward the alien ships above. In his flagship, heard something through his sensors. It was the sound of humans shouting. He did not understand the words, but something about it made him feel strange. For the first time in his life, he felt a tiny seed of doubt. He pushed it away. They were just soft little creatures. What could they possibly do? He would soon find out. The 48 hours ended. Governor Park had not surrendered. She had sent message after message to the, asking for more time, asking to negotiate, asking questions that had no real answers. She was stalling, and Commander knew it. "Enough games," he said. "Begin the attack." The warships opened fire. Bright beams of energy fell from the sky like rain. Buildings exploded. Fires spread across the colony. People ran screaming through the streets. But they did not run in panic. They ran with purpose. Every citizen knew exactly where to go. For 2 days, Sergeant Lee had trained them. Old people went to the underground shelters. Young people went to their assigned positions. Even children knew how to help. The ground forces came next. Thousands of drop ships fell from the sky, carrying soldiers to the surface. They expected to find terrified civilians hiding in corners, begging for mercy. Instead, they found Lee. She stood at the front of her militia, 300 men and women with old rifles and homemade weapons. They were not real soldiers. They were farmers, teachers, doctors, shopkeepers. But they stood together, and they did not run. "Hold your fire until they are close," commanded. "Make every shot count." The first soldiers stepped out of their drop ships. They were monsters from a nightmare, 8 feet tall, covered in dark armor with claws that gleamed in the firelight. They moved forward, confident and slow. Waited. Her heart was beating fast, but her hands were steady. "Now," she shouted. The militia opened fire. Bullets flew through the air. Most bounced off the armor, but some found weak spots. One alien fell, then another. They stopped. They stared at their fallen soldiers. This was impossible. No prey species had ever fought back like this. "What are these creatures?" one soldier asked. Before anyone could answer, led a charge. Her people ran forward, screaming battle cries. Some carried knives. Some carried metal pipes. One old woman swung a cooking pot at a soldier's head. The aliens were confused. Their training did not prepare them for this. Prey was supposed to run away, not attack. These humans were acting like predators. Deep underground, an engineer named was working as fast as he could. He was a thin man with glasses and gentle hands, hands made for fixing machines, not fighting wars. But war had come to his home, and he would do whatever he could. "Hand me that cable," he said to his assistant. He was turning mining equipment into weapons. Drilling lasers became cannons. Transport vehicles became armored tanks. Everything that could explode was being made to explode even bigger. His wife worked beside him. She was organizing the civilians in the tunnels, making sure everyone had food and water. She was also teaching people how to make bombs from cleaning supplies and fertilizer. "Is that safe?" someone asked her. Smiled, "No, but neither is staying on the surface." She kissed on the cheek. "Be careful up there." "I will come back to you," he promised. "I always do." Above ground, the battle continued. They had numbers and weapons, but the humans had something else. They fought like they had nothing to lose. Every street became a trap. Every building became a fortress. Minyu flew his fighter through the chaos. His orders were to stay on standby, but when he saw ships bombing civilian areas, he could not obey any longer. "This is Minyu going in," he said into his radio. "Negative, stay back," his commander shouted. Minyu ignored him. He flew straight at a bomber and fired everything he had. His weapons were weak, but he hit the bomber's engine. The massive ship wobbled and crashed into an empty field. Other pilots saw what he did. One by one, they followed him. Soon, a dozen small human fighters were attacking the fleet. They were like mosquitoes against elephants, but they did not stop. On the flagship, Commander watched with growing anger. This was supposed to be easy. These creatures were supposed to surrender or die quickly. Instead, they were fighting with a madness he had never seen. "Sir," his officer said, "we have lost 47 soldiers." 47 could not believe it, to these soft things. "Yes, sir, and they are still fighting." Looked at the screens showing the battle below. He saw a human woman dragging a wounded man to safety while still firing her weapon with one hand. He saw an old man throwing rocks at soldiers. He saw children carrying supplies to the fighters. They were not acting like prey. They were not even acting like predators. They were acting like something he had never seen before. "What are they?" he whispered. On the ground, Lee was wounded. A claw had cut deep into her arm. Blood ran down to her fingers, making her rifle slippery, but she did not stop fighting. "Sergeant, you need medical help," one of her soldiers shouted. Later said through her teeth, "Keep shooting." Night fell over New. The fires made the sky glow orange. Bodies lay in the streets, both human but the humans still held their positions. Park walked among her people, helping where she could. She carried water to the fighters. She bandaged wounds with her own hands. She spoke words of courage to those who needed them. "The fleet is coming," she told everyone. "We just need to hold on a little longer." She did not know if it was true. She did not know if help would come in time. But she knew that her people needed hope, so she gave them hope. In the tunnels below, finished his biggest project yet. He had connected explosives to all the mining tunnels under the forward base. "When I push this button," he explained, "the ground under their base will collapse. It will take out hundreds of them." Held his hand. "You are a good man." "I am just an engineer," he said. "I fix things, and right now I am going to fix our enemy problem." Above them the battle raged on. They sent more soldiers. The humans kept fighting. Every hour more people died on both sides. But something strange was happening. The soldiers were starting to hesitate. They were starting to look over their shoulders. They were starting to feel something they had never felt before in 12,000 years of conquest. They were starting to feel afraid. And somewhere in deep space, Admiral pushed his fleet to go faster. His ships were burning their engines beyond safe limits. Crew members worked without sleep. "How much longer?" he asked. 20 hours, sir." 20 hours. Looked at the distant star that was New's sun. "Hold on," he whispered. "Just hold on a little longer." The Third Fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel like a storm arriving on the horizon. 42 human warships, each one carrying the hopes of an entire species. They were beautiful ships, sleek and fast, built for speed rather than raw power. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Soul's Pride. He looked at the tactical display and saw what he expected. They outnumbered him 5-1. Their ships were bigger, stronger, and carried more weapons. His tactical officer, Commander O, spoke first. She was a serious woman who believed in numbers and facts. Right now, the numbers were not good. "Sir, I have calculated our chances of victory," she said. "Based on enemy ship count, weapons power, and shield strength, we have a 12% chance of winning this battle." Smiled. It was a strange smile, not happy but not afraid either. 12%, he repeated. "Those are the best odds we have ever had." Stared at him. "Sir, that was not a joke." "I know, Commander, but those numbers assume we fight the way they expect us to fight." He turned to face his crew. "We are not going to do that." They saw the human fleet arrive. Commander laughed when he counted their ships. "This is their rescue," he said. 42 small ships against our 200. They are even more foolish than I thought." He gave the order to engage. The fleet moved forward in perfect formation, a wall of massive warships, each one capable of destroying cities. They expected the humans to either run away or meet them head-on in a battle they could not win. The humans did neither. Instead, the Third Fleet scattered. Ships flew in every direction, breaking into small groups of 3 or 4. They moved fast, changing direction constantly, making themselves impossible to target. "What are they doing?" demanded. "This is not a proper battle formation." "Sir, we cannot lock on to them. They keep moving." Minyu led a squadron of 12 small fighters. His ship was damaged from the battle over Nu, held together with tape and hope. But it still flew, and he still had weapons. "All pilots follow my lead," he said. "Remember the plan: fast attacks, then run. Do not let them catch you." They dove toward a cruiser. The massive ship tried to shoot them, but they were too small and too fast. Minyu fired his missiles at the cruiser's engine section and pulled away before the explosion. The cruiser did not die, but it was wounded. It slowed down, falling behind the rest of the fleet. "One down, 199 to go," Minyu joked. But no one laughed. They all knew how dangerous this was. On the Soul's Pride watched the battle unfold. His ships were everywhere, attacking from all angles, never staying still long enough to be hit. It was chaos, but it was controlled chaos. "Sir, we are losing ships," reported. "The hammer is gone, the took heavy damage." "I know," said quietly. "Keep fighting." Every lost ship meant lost lives, felt each one like a knife in his heart. But he could not stop now. If he stopped, everyone on Nu would die. Dr. Han was not a soldier. She was a scientist who studied alien minds. She had spent her life trying to understand how other species thought. Now, she had a different job. The humans had captured an officer during the ground battle. He was wounded but alive, locked in a cell on one of the ships. Went to talk to him. The officer stared at her with his cold black eyes. He was missing one arm and green blood stained his armor, but he still looked at her with contempt. "You have already lost," he said. "You cannot defeat the Empire." Sat down calmly. "Maybe, but you have already lost something too." "What?" "Your certainty." She leaned forward. "You came here expecting easy prey. You found something else, and now your soldiers are dying in ways they never imagined." They made a hissing sound. "Your ships are weak, your bodies are soft, you have no natural weapons. How are you doing this?" Thought about the question. She thought about Minyu flying into certain death with a smile on his face. She thought about fighting with one arm useless. She thought about and building bombs in the darkness below. "We call it sacrifice," she said finally. "We do it for each other." Sacrifice, the word seemed to confuse him. "You put yourselves in danger for others. Why?" "Because they would do the same for us." There was silent for a long time. Then he asked a question that would echo through his entire species for generations. "What are you?" In space, the battle continued. Minyu's fighter was hit. Warning lights flashed across his cockpit. His engine was failing, his weapons were empty, and 3 fighters were chasing him. "Minyu, eject," someone shouted through his radio. "Not yet," he said. "I have one more trick." He turned his dying fighter toward the flagship. Not to attack, he had no weapons left, but to draw attention, to make them focus on him instead of his friends. The 3 fighters followed him. So did a dozen more. And while they chased one small human pilot, a squad of human bombers slipped past them and hit the flagship's shield generators. "Now," Minyu shouted. He ejected just as his fighter exploded. The force threw him into the cold darkness of space. He floated there, watching the flagship's shields flicker and die. A rescue shuttle found him 10 minutes later. He was frozen and barely conscious, but he was alive. "You crazy fool," the pilot said as she pulled him inside. "You almost died." Minyu managed a weak smile. "Almost only counts in explosives." On the flagship, Commander stared at his damaged ship in shock. His shields were gone, his fleet was in chaos, and those tiny human ships just kept coming. "Sir, we need to retreat," his officer said. Retreat had never said that word before. He did not even know how it felt in his mouth. The "do not retreat." "Sir, if we stay, we will lose." Looked at the battle. He saw his ships burning. He saw human pilots flying suicide runs with smiles on their faces. He saw something he had never believed possible. He saw the Empire losing. "No," he said. "Not yet. Send in everything. Every ship, every soldier. We will crush these creatures or die trying." But deep in his ancient heart, he felt something new, something cold and unfamiliar. For the first time in 12,000 years, a commander felt fear. The battle for Nu reached its final hour. Both sides had given everything they had. The sky was filled with burning ships. The ground was covered with the fallen. And still, the fighting continued. Commander had made his decision. He would win this battle or die trying. He sent every soldier, every ship, every weapon at the humans. It was all or nothing now. On the ground, Sergeant Lee could barely stand. Her wounds were bad. She had lost too much blood. The doctors wanted to take her to the medical tent, but she refused. "Give me a rifle," she said. "I can still fight." "Please," one of her soldiers begged. "You have done enough." "No one has done enough until we win." She took the rifle and limped to the front line. Her soldiers watched her go. Some of them had tears in their eyes. Then they picked up their own weapons and followed her. Governor Park saw what did. She looked at the rifle in her own hands, a weapon she had picked up hours ago when the fighting got close. She had never shot anyone before yesterday. Now she had lost count. She walked to stand beside, room for one more. Looked at her governor, a woman who should have been safe in a bunker somewhere, giving orders from a distance. Instead, she was here, covered in dirt and blood, ready to fight. "Always," said. The 2 women stood together as the final wave of soldiers approached. Behind them, hundreds of civilians had picked up weapons. Teachers, farmers, children who should have been in school, all of them ready to die for their home. Deep underground was ready. His finger hovered over the button that would destroy the forward base. Stood beside him, holding their old wedding photo in her hands. "If this does not work," said, "I want you to know that I—" "It will work," interrupted. "You built it, of course it will work." Smiled sadly. "You always believed in me more than I believed in myself." That is what wives do. Above them, tanks rolled toward the civilian shelters. Thousands of soldiers marched behind them. This was the final push. If they broke through here, the war would be over. "Press the button." The ground shook. Then it cracked. Then it collapsed entirely, swallowing the forward base into a hole half a mile wide. Tanks, soldiers, equipment, everything fell into the darkness below. The attack stopped. The soldiers who survived stared at the massive hole where their base used to be. For a moment, no one moved. Then Lee raised her rifle and screamed, "Now push them back." The humans charged forward. They ran over the broken ground, firing as they went. The confused tried to retreat, but there was nowhere to go. The battle on the ground had turned. In space, the situation was just as desperate. Admiral had lost half his fleet. The survivors were damaged and exhausted, but they were still fighting. "Sir, the flagship's shields are still down," Commander reported. "If we concentrate all our fire on one point, we might be able to destroy it." "Do it," ordered. "Tell all ships to target the flagship." But there was a problem. The flagship was surrounded by a wall of warships. Getting close enough to attack would be suicide. Minyu heard the order from his hospital bed on the rescue shuttle. His body was broken. His fighter was destroyed, but his mind was still working. "I have an idea," he said into his radio, "but I need a ship." "You can barely walk," the pilot said. "You cannot fly." "I do not need to fly well. I just need to fly once." They gave him a ship, a small transport shuttle with no weapons. Minyu climbed inside, wincing at every movement. His hands shook as he grabbed the controls. "Minyu, what are you doing?" asked through the radio. "Creating a distraction," he answered. "When I break through, hit the flagship with everything." He flew straight at the wall of warships. They saw him coming, one tiny shuttle against dozens of massive ships. They laughed through their communications. "Is this human insane?" one captain asked. "Kill him," another ordered. They fired. Minyu flew through the storm of energy beams, dodging with skills he did not know he had. His shuttle was hit again and again. Parts of it were on fire, but he kept going. They focused on him. Their formation broke as ships turned to chase this crazy human. And in that moment, Admiral saw his chance. "All ships fire now." Every human warship fired at once. Missiles, lasers, cannons, everything they had flew toward the flagship. With its shields down and its escorts distracted, the flagship had no defense. The first missiles hit, then more, then 1,000 more. The flagship exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the entire battlefield. Commander died in an instant, never understanding how he had lost. In his burning shuttle, Minyu saw the explosion. He smiled. "Got you," he whispered. Then he ejected for the second time that day. His body screamed in pain as the force threw him into space. But he was alive. Somehow, impossibly, he was still alive. The fleet stopped fighting. Their commander was dead. Their flagship was destroyed. They had never experienced defeat before and did not know what to do. One by one, the ships began to retreat. They turned and flew away, leaving their dead behind. The battle was over. On the ground, Lee watched the alien ships flee. She could not believe it. They had won. She fell to her knees, too tired and wounded to stand any longer. Park caught her before she hit the ground. "We did it," said. "We did it." "Yes," whispered. "We did." In the tunnels below and held each other. They heard the cheering from above. They knew what it meant. "We survived," said. Kissed her forehead. "We did more than survive, we won." In space, Admiral looked at what remained of his fleet. So many ships were gone. So many good people had died. But those who survived were cheering, crying, hugging each other. "Send a message to Earth," he said quietly. Tell them we are still here." They had faced the galaxy's most feared species. They had been outnumbered and outmatched in every way. And they had won. But knew this was not the end. The Empire would not accept this defeat. They would come back with more ships, more soldiers, more anger. The real war was just beginning. He looked at the stars and wondered what the future would hold. Whatever came next, humanity would face it together. Just like they always had. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Nu. The news had spread across the galaxy like fire across dry grass. Every species under rule heard the story. A small, soft, weak species had done the impossible. They had beaten the masters. On 100 worlds, slaves began to whisper a new word: human. The Empire was in chaos. They had lost their best commander. They had lost their faith in their own power. For the first time in 12,000 years, they did not know what to do next. The Emperor of the was very old. He had ruled for 3,000 years, watching his people conquer world after world. He had never known failure. Now, failure sat in front of him like a mirror he could not look away from. "Bring me the human ambassador," he ordered. Was not a soldier. He was a history teacher from Nu. He had spent his life teaching children about the past, about how civilizations rose and fell, about what made some survive and others disappear. He had volunteered to be the ambassador because no one else wanted the job. Everyone thought it was a death sentence. They did not negotiate, they only conquered. But was tired of being afraid. He had lost his wife and daughter in the first bombing of Nu. He had nothing left to lose except his humanity. And that he refused to give up. He walked into the throne room of the Emperor. The room was massive, built to make visitors feel small and weak. Giant statues of warriors lined the walls. The floor was made from the bones of conquered species. The Emperor sat on a throne carved from black stone. He was ancient and terrible, with scars covering his body from centuries of battle. His eyes were cold and empty, like the space between stars. "You are the human ambassador," the Emperor said. It was not a question. Bowed his head slightly. "I am. Your people killed many of mine. They destroyed my best commander. They humiliated my empire." The Emperor leaned forward. "Give me one reason why I should not destroy every human in this galaxy." Thought carefully before answering. He knew his next words could decide the fate of his entire species. "Because you cannot," he said simply. The room went silent. No one had ever spoken to the Emperor like this. "Explain," the Emperor demanded. "You have tried to destroy us once. It did not work. You could try again, you might even succeed, but it would cost you everything." Stepped closer to the throne. "You would lose more ships, more soldiers, more resources. And while you focused on us, your other conquered species would see your weakness. They would rise against you. Your empire would fall apart." The Emperor said nothing, but his eyes showed that he was listening. "We do not want war," continued. "We never wanted war. You came to us with weapons. You gave us no choice but to fight, but we can give you a choice now." "What choice?" "Peace." The word hung in the air. They had never offered peace to anyone. They did not know what it meant. "Why?" the Emperor asked. "You defeated us. You could demand tribute. You could demand our surrender. You could try to conquer us as we tried to conquer you. Why offer peace?" Thought about his wife, who had loved flowers and hated conflict. He thought about his daughter, who had wanted to be a doctor and help people. He thought about everything he had lost. "Because that is who we are," he said. "We fight when we must. We win when we can, but we do not destroy for the sake of destroying. We do not hate for the sake of hating. We are better than that." The Emperor was silent for a very long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. Softer somehow, more curious than threatening. "In 12,000 years I have conquered 10,000 species. I have destroyed civilizations older than your entire world. I have seen things that would break your human mind." He paused. "But I have never seen anything like you." "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" asked. "I do not know yet." The negotiations lasted for months. They were difficult and sometimes dangerous. But in the end, a treaty was signed. They would not attack human worlds. Humans would not support rebellions in the Empire. Both sides would trade and communicate as equals. It was not perfect, but it was a beginning. Back on Nu, the survivors were rebuilding. The city had been destroyed, but the people were still there. Every day, they worked together to make their home whole again. Minu walked slowly through the construction site. His body was covered in scars from his injuries. The doctors said he would never fly again. He did not care. He was alive, and that was enough. He found Lee sitting on a pile of rubble, watching the workers. She had lost her left arm in the final battle. A mechanical replacement sat where flesh used to be. She was still learning how to use it. "Mind if I sit?" Minyu asked. "Go ahead." They sat in silence for a while, watching their people rebuild. "Do you think it was worth it?" Minyu finally asked. "All the people we lost." Looked at the new buildings rising from the ruins. She looked at the children playing in the streets, laughing like children should laugh. She looked at the sky, now clear of enemy ships. "Yes," she said, "it was worth it." At a memorial ceremony that evening, Governor Park read the names of everyone who had died defending New. The list went on for hours. Each name was a life, a story, a family that would never be whole again. When she finished, she looked at the crowd, thousands of survivors standing together under the stars. "They did not die for nothing," she said. "They died so we could live. They died so the galaxy would know that humans do not give up. They died so our children would have a future." She wiped tears from her eyes. "We will remember them, always." Across the galaxy, other species were watching. They saw humans who had been beaten and broken stand up again. They saw enemies who had been defeated offered mercy. They saw something they had never seen before. They saw hope. One by one, ambassadors from other species began to contact Earth. They wanted to talk. They wanted to learn. They wanted to understand how humans had done the impossible. And humans welcomed them all. In his quiet room, wrote a letter to his dead wife and daughter. He told them what he had done. He told them about the peace treaty, about the hope spreading across the galaxy, about the future that was now possible because humans had refused to give up. "I do not know if you can hear me," he wrote, "but I want you to know that your deaths were not meaningless. We built something from our pain. We made something good from something terrible. I hope that wherever you are proud." He folded the letter and placed it in a box with their photos. Then he looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Emperor was thinking about humans. Other species were talking about humans. The galaxy was changing because of humans. The galaxy's most feared species had finally met their match. And their match had taught them something they never expected to learn, that strength is not just about winning wars. It is about knowing when to stop fighting. It is about building instead of destroying. It is about choosing hope over hate. That was humanity's real victory. Not the battle they won, but the peace they chose. And across the galaxy, for the first time in 12,000 years, the future looked bright.